My dear students, let's now go through the next part of our story, which is the journey to the center of the earth. We're gonna go through chapter 8. Chapter 8 has lots of information, so it needs a very range of focus and concentration. So I need you to pay attention more and more than other times. I want you to bring pen and paper, and let's start our chapter 8 today. Let's go. And now let's start chapter 8. As usual, as we do usually, we start with some of the important points, and this chapter 8 is called the Great Explosion. We're gonna definitely know what is Great Explosion, what happened during that. We will understand everything going on in this chapter. So starting with vocabulary, some important points, the main important questions. As you can see now, we're gonna start our vocabulary part. The first one that we have is shine. What is shine? Shine, in one of the example is the knife shines in the light of the sun in the sand. What does it mean, shine? If you put a glass of a piece of a glass to the sun, it will shine. So the example again is the knife shines in the light of the sun in the sand. Very good. The second one is steel. Steel. Steel is one of the material, like the knife was made of steel, which is very hard. So how we make or how we create the knife, we make it out of steel, exactly. The next one is initials. Initial. What is initial? Initial is the beginning of lots of things. Like for example, Arne Saknussemm carved his initials on a rock. So what is his initials? His first letters of his name, like which is A.S. Those are the initials. For example, if I say my name is Ahmad Ali, so his initial is A.A. Very good. Tunnel. Tunnel. What is tunnel? Tunnel is the place that you find a way under the ground. Like the subway goes under the tunnel. The example here is the tunnel is a long way under the ground. Very good. Block. Block. Block can be verb or a noun. Here we used it as a verb. So the rock blocked their way and prevented from going into the tunnel. What the meaning of block? Block, to close something totally. Like if you are walking in the street and suddenly a very big rock fall out of any building. What happens? It blocks your way. It stops your way totally. So blocks again, the rock blocked their way and prevented from going into the tunnel. Deserve. Deserve. What is deserve? When you say something, when you say somebody deserves that, Axel said that they didn't deserve. What is the meaning of deserve? بالعربي بنقول عليها يستحق. يعني لما حد يحصل له حاجة بنقول فعلا ده إنسان مجتهد وهو يستحق. So he deserves that. The example that we have is Axel said that they didn't deserve to reach the center of the earth if they couldn't break the rock. The next one is gunpowder. What is gunpowder? بنقول عليه بالعربي البارود. The example that we have, they used the gunpowder to explode the rock. هم استخدموا البارود ده عشان يعملوا تفجير أو يكسروا الصخرة اللي كانت واقفة في طريقهم. Delay. Delay. What is delay? If you have something right now and you say no problem, I will do it tomorrow, you delay it. Or if the bus should leave at 3 o'clock and it left at 3:30, so there is 30 minutes delay. The example that we have, there was 10 minutes delay to explode the gunpowder. So they waited 10 minutes more till the explosion happens. Exactly, to delay means يأخر أو تأخير. Very good. The next one, fuse. So they made a longer fuse to explode the gunpowder without hurting themselves. So they used this fuse to be able to be safe. Light. Light can be a noun or a verb. Light, as you know, the sun gives us light. And another one, which when we use it as a verb, to make a fire or to cause a fire or to build a fire. So if you have a cigarette, for example, and you want to start smoking it, you have to light it first. And the past is lit, L-I-T. So the example that we have, they use the matches to light the fuse. So now it's clear. What does it mean? What does it mean, light? Very good. Continue. Continue. There is a big difference between continue and complete. We say complete when we have a missing part, and continue when we want to go on. Like if I'm talking and stopped, then I will start again. I don't say complete talking. No, I say continue speaking. Okay? So continue here. The example that we have, when they saw the rock, they couldn't continue their journey. هما لما شافوا الصخرة اللي وقفت في طريقهم وقفت طريقهم دي ما قدروش يكملوا في طريقهم. Explosion. Explosion. What is explosion? Explosion means, as you can see in the picture, this picture means that happens after explosion. If you have a bomb and it explodes, it makes explosion. The gunpowder made a great explosion after they lit the fuse. As we said before, that lit means the past of light to make it on fire. Exactly. The next one, left. Left has two meanings, but here I need it as a verb to carry. So Axel lifted the knife up to examine it. What does it mean to lift something? To carry it. If you have a bag, to put it on your bag, you have to lift it first, and the past is lifted. The next one is prevent. What is prevent? If you have a child at home and there is, for example, electricity, you have to prevent him from touching it. Why? To keep him safe. So prevent means to keep away. The example that we have, they held to each other to prevent themselves from falling. هم مسكوا في بعض عشان يمنعوا بعض أو ينقذوا بعض من إن هم يقعوا. So prevent means يمنع أو يحفظ. The next one, speed. What is speed? Exactly, speed is the limit that you use when you drive a car, when you do something. Like the example that we have, the raft moved in great speed after the explosion. So الرافت اللي هم كانوا عاملينها اللي هانز عملها, if you remember in the first semester, اتحركت بسرعة عالية جدا بعد الاكسبلوجن أو بعد الانفجار. The next one, against. Against. What is against? Against can mean two things. Either to be in front of the other side, like opposite, or to be not with somebody but against him. The example, they put the fuse against the gunpowder, means in the same direction or the opposite direction to be able to explode it. Very good. Next one, cliff. Cliff. Cliff is a part of a mountain, is the bottom of it. Like they found the initials at the foot of the cliff. Very good. So the lowest part of the mountain is the cliff. Entrance. Entrance, for example, if you have a villa or a company. So this company has a main gate. After the main gate there is an entrance. We call it مدخل. In Arabic we call it مدخل المكان. The example that we have, The entrance of the tunnel was narrow. The next one, curve. Curve. What is curve? To write something on a wall. Like Saknussemm used a knife to curve his name on a rock. When you, for example, hold a pen and use it on your desk to write your name, so you are curving your name. Traveler. Traveler. It's not traveler, it's traveler. It's not traveler. Ernest Saknussemm was a great traveler, and I want you to pay attention to a part here that is traveler has two L, because this is the British typing or the British spelling. In the American one, they use one L only. So if you see it outside with one L, it's not wrong, it's totally right. So Ernest Saknussemm was a great traveler. Traveler is the person who travels a lot. Now we go to the main points of this chapter. As Axel was running on the shore, if you can remember what was the last one, the last part, he saw something shining in the sand. If you can remember what is shining, yes, like gold in the sun. So he saw something shining. It was a knife. He found a knife. The knife was made of steel and it was there many years ago. So he found it, and it seems that it's very, very old. But they didn't know how it came here. The professor said that the blade of the knife, what is the blade؟ بالعربي بنقول عليه نصل السكينة أو حد السكينة، المكان اللي بنقطع بيه. So the professor said that the blade of the knife is rough, as someone used it to curve his name on a rock. الجملة دي مهمة جدا لأنه البروفيسور اكتشف أو هو قال إنه حد السكينة ده مش مستوي، ده يعني طالع ونازل مش مظبوط، فحد استخدمه إن هو يحفر اسمه أو يرسم اسمه على صخرة. They looked all over the rocks and at the foot of the cliff. هم بصوا حواليهم عشان يشوفوا اللي اتكتب ده اتكتب فين، اللي اتكتب بالسكينة قبل كده. So they looked all over the rocks and at the foot of the cliff they found an entrance to a dark tunnel where they found the two letters AS. So they found an entrance to a dark tunnel, and we said entrance is the place that you get through to get into something like a company or a building, and the dark tunnel, and we said the tunnel is away under the ground. So what happened there, or what did they find? They found two letters, and if you remember, we called them initials. The two initials or the two letters are AS, that stand for exactly Arne Saknussemm. These were the initials of the name of Arne Saknussemm. Axel's doubts about the journey disappeared as the great scientist arrived at this place. This is another important part, so I have to explain it more in Arabic. هو هنا بيقول إنه شكوك أكسل، كل الشك اللي كان عند أكسل عن إن الرحلة دي مش حقيقية وإن هم ممكن يموتوا خلاص انتهت، لأنه هو لقى اسم مكتشف عظيم أو عالم عظيم اللي هو كان AS أو أرني ساكنيوسون. And wrote his initials to guide them on their way. So after he found those initials, he believed that they are on the right way or on the right track. They entered the tunnel and continued their journey. After a few meters, they became in front of a great rock which blocked their way. Do you remember the block? What the meaning of the block? Yeah, it stopped their way. Axel suggested to blow the rock up by gunpowder. So Axel, who was the person that suggested to explode the rock using the gunpowder? Hans made a hole in the rock with his pickaxe, and packed it with gunpowder. So he continued, or he started kicking or hitting the wall until he made a hole. Then they put a lot of gunpowder inside the rock to be able to explode it easily. Then they made a long fuse out of cloth. Do you remember what the meaning of fuse? Exactly. The next day, they were ready to light the fuse. So they slept until the next day, and now they are ready to light the fuse. After the explosion, the shape of the rocks changed. Definitely any explosion changed a lot. So the explosion changed the rock around them. A huge hole opened and the sea became one big wave. It seems that behind that rock there was a sea. Suddenly, after the explosion, the sea became one big wave. It lifted them and threw them forward. يبقى هنا برضو نقطة مهمة جدا، إن هم بعد ما عملوا فتحة كبيرة بعد الانفجار ده عملوا فتحة كبيرة جدا في الصخر، فالمية طلعت عليهم مرة واحدة وشالتهم ورمتهم بعيد لقدام. They were in complete darkness and the water carried them in a frightening speed. So there was great darkness, they couldn't see anything, and the sea or the water carried them or lifted them in a frightening speed. What is the meaning of frightening speed? Frightening speed means like very like afraid. I'm afraid of that one, means that it makes me afraid. Frightening means that it makes me afraid or very horrible. They hold each other to prevent falling off the raft. هم هنا مسكوا في بعض عشان ما فيش واحد فيهم يقع بره الرافت اللي هم عملوها. They had lost nearly everything. They had food, they had everything, but it seems that they lost everything. All they had were some biscuits and a small piece of meat. They were moving faster and faster, then they started to fall. But they didn't know where they were falling. So they started to fall, but they didn't know where are they going, or where were they going. Let's go through some important questions after we finish the main points and the vocabulary parts. Here it says answer the following questions. Answer the following questions. Let's check the first one. What did Axel find in the sand? Yeah, he found something shining. Yes, it was a steel knife. That's right. Why did the professor think it was 100 years old only? What do you think? Why did the professor think it was 100 years old only? Because it was made of steel. Yes, and the steel was not there more than 100 years old, or 100 years. So he thought, this important question I have to make it clearer. هنا بيقول ليه البروفيسور اعتقد ان السكينة دي بقالها بس 100 سنة، لانها كانت معمولة من الستيل، والستيل ساعتها ما كانش حد بيستخدمه قبل ال 100 سنة، قبل 100 سنة ما كانش فيه ستيل اصلا. Very good. Why was the blade of the knife was rough? Why do you think the blade of the knife was not even, it was rough? Yes, why? What did the professor say about that? Exactly. Because someone used it to curve his name or his initial. Do you remember whose initial was that? Exactly. Arne Saknisama, as you can see the next question. Where did they find the letters AS? On a rock at the entrance of a dark tunnel at the foot of the cliff. What did the letters AS mean? Perfect. Arne Saknussemm. Exactly. It meant the initials of his names, and now we are aware of what is the meaning of exactly initials. Why did Arne Saknussemm curve his letters? Why did he do that? This scientist wrote his initials on a rock. Why do you think he did it? Exactly, that made Axel like to be aware that this journey is not fake. So to guide them on their way, because after they found his letters or his initials, they believed that they are on the right track. Very good. What blocked their way in the tunnel? There was something that blocked the way, stopped them. Do you remember what was that? Exactly, a huge rock. What did they decide to do to the rock? As you know that there was a rock blocked their way. Perfect. So Axel had an idea to get rid of it. Yes, they decided to blow it up with gunpowder. They decided to explode it to be able to go. Whose idea was that? Yes, it was Axel's idea. Axel was the person who suggested to explode the rock with the gunpowder. Very good. How did they blow the rock? Yes, exactly. Can you remember what happens? We said it before. Perfect. Hans made a hole in it. It means the rock, and packed it with gunpowder. Gunpowder, he put a lot of gunpowder inside the rock. After that, then they explode the gunpowder on the following day or on the next day, because they waited the following day. But can you remember how did they do that? Using a long fuse. Perfect. What happened after the explosion? Yes, there's something very important happened to them. Yes, exactly. A huge hole opened and the sea became one big wave. They were moving at great speed, or they were lifted by the sea at great speed. Let's go to another part of the story, which is another important part. Complete the following sentences. The first one, at first they tried to break the rock by, what did they use to break the rock at the beginning? Exactly, they used a pickaxe. You remember the pickaxe of Hans? Yes. The following, or the next one, Axel made a long fuse. 2. Why did they make a long fuse? To blow up the rock. Exactly, to blow up the rock, to explode it. The sea became one wave when. ده برضو من الأسئلة المهمة، إنه البحر أصبح كأنه موجة واحدة. إمتى حصل الكلام ده؟ أو إمتى أصبح كموجة واحدة؟ Perfect. The rock exploded. So the sea became one wave when the rock exploded. Next one. The knife that Axel found was. What was said about that knife? It was said that it was made of steel. And Professor Lidenbrock said something very important. How old was that? Exactly, it was only 100 years old, because before that there was no any steel. They couldn't continue the journey in the tunnel because what made them stopped, or what stopped them of continuing their journey in the tunnel? Exactly, a huge rock blocked it. It was blocked by a huge rock. Very good. As the knife was made of steel, what did Professor Lidenbrock say? Can you remember? And what happened? It was 100 years old only. The next one. The knife belongs to? Yes. Who left this knife? Arne Saknussemm, as he curved his name on, or his initials, on the foot of the cliff. When Axel saw the initials, he, yes, what happened about the journey? He decided to continue the journey as all his doubts disappeared. After we finished chapter 8, as you saw that it has a lot of information, it needs lots of study, because this is almost the biggest part of our story this term. I want you to study well to be able to continue the 2 chapters, the final 2 chapters in the story. Thank you so much, and see you